Hi, I'm Wes Skiles, and welcome to Jenny Springs.
You come to Jenny Springs to cave dive, the first thing you'll hear is, welcome to Jenny Springs, I'm Wes Skiles.
On the 21st of July 2010, well-known underwater cave diver and photographer Wesley C. Skiles went to explore Boynton Beach, Florida. What started as just another diving adventure for Wesley soon turned into his worst nightmare when he failed to make it back to the surface and lost his life. The incident shook the whole diving industry in America and all over the world, with everyone wondering how an experienced diver like Skiles ended up dead in such a tragic way. This is the story of one of the most infamous tragedies of the diving industry, the story of the life and death of Wes Skiles. So, let's get into it. Who was Wesley Skiles? Wesley Skiles was born on March 6, 1958 in Jacksonville, Florida, where he spent all of his childhood. Now, even as a child, Sky has had a keen interest in swimming and diving. According to those who knew him, it was his favorite thing to do. At merely 8 years of age, he started diving, and in his own words, he took the water like a fish. As he grew older, this interest kept on growing until the incident made him choose this as his career. So what happened was, during the 1973-74 school year, the fossil club that Skiles was part of took a field trip to Jenny Springs, which is a privately owned park about 6.5 miles northwest of High Springs, Florida. Now, just when they were about to return, Skiles saw a bunch of divers emerge with all of their equipment from one of the deep underwater caves present in the springs. This scene was more than enough to fascinate Skiles, and he ran towards the divers, bombarding them with all sorts of questions about the experience. According to his classmate, Skiles' excitement remained intact on their way back to Jacksonville, and during the whole journey he kept on repeating, "This is what I want to do." 2 years later, in 1976, he graduated from Englewood High School and started pursuing diving with utmost passion. With enough knowledge and experience, Skiles soon became a cave diving instructor and took the job at a dive store in Brantford, named Brantford Dive Center. This job further helped Skiles to gain more knowledge about diving and get to know about all of the equipment used in this field. During his job at the diving center, he met Lamar Hires, who was one of the other pioneers in the field. Together, Skiles and Hires would attempt diving under various conditions, using all sorts of different equipment. This was the time when both of them started developing different equipment like diving lights that could be helpful in diving. While Hires continued to do so after founding the company Dive Right, Skiles left Brantford in 1983 to become a manager at Jenny Springs, the place where his fascination with diving began. At Jenny Springs, Skiles became the head of the diving section, with a fellow cave diving instructor laid down safety lines for many underwater spring caves present in the area. Now, during these diving expeditions, Skiles started to work on another one of his hobbies, which was underwater cinematography, a passion that he had developed after getting inspired by George Benjamin, who was, at the time, a pretty well-known name in the industry. In 1985, after gaining enough experience as a beginner, Skiles decided to test his passion at a greater level, founded Cars Production. The company's main goal was to explore the world of underwater cinematography, and well, Skiles certainly succeeded in becoming the pioneer in this field. You see, Skiles was one of the first people to properly use lights for photography in deep-sea caves. His colleagues called him the best in the world when it came to lighting an underwater cave, and soon this particular thing became Skiles' specialty. Pretty soon, Wes's underwater cinematography career was on a roll, and he began to produce, shoot, and direct a number of television shows on diving for large networks like PBS, Discovery Channel, and IMAX. Gaining more and more popularity with each passing day, Skiles eventually became a part of several exploratory projects done by National Geographic. One such project was Nat Geo's Antarctica exploration, which allowed him to be the first man ever to set foot on the iceberg B-15. The accident. Ironically, or rather poetically, Wes died doing the thing he loved the most.
Strikes the dive community. A well-known underwater photographer died yesterday off our coast. News Channel 5's Kashmir has more on the life and the death of Wes Skiles.
Now, Wes was someone who truly loved the underwater world. For this love, He worked tirelessly to spread awareness about the importance and conversion of the underwater spring systems present in Florida and the rest of the country. Just 10 days before his death, Wes was working on a similar project that aimed at spreading awareness about such springs and the ocean life that they had supported. This was a 2-week project for television science program called Nova. After completing the shoot, Wes noticed that some of the footage wasn't up to his standard and asked the production company about the possibility of shooting it again. Nova, who was quite on a tight schedule, refused and decided to go on with the same footage. Being a perfectionist, this just didn't sit right with Skiles, and 10 days later, he returned to record this particular sequence again. With his fellow photographers, Wes went into the water diving towards a reef that was about 1 mile out and just 75 feet deep. According to his fellow divers, after some time, Wes signaled that he was going to the surface as his camera was out of memory. All of this was something that happened in routine, but to everyone's surprise and horror, after some time, divers noticed something at the bottom of the reef, and this something looked like a human being. Alarmed after seeing this, the divers quickly got closer, and what they saw was nothing short of horrifying. Wes Skiles, who had allegedly gone up, was lying on the surface of the reef, looking lifeless. When he showed no response to his colleagues, they quickly swam with him towards the surface. At the surface, all the attempts to revive him failed, and he was taken to the nearby hospital where he lost his life on the 21st of July, 2010. According to the doctors, the cause of death was simple drowning and lack of oxygen. A controversial death? Obviously, this news spread like wildfire, and soon everyone in the diving community was talking about this particular incident. Some believed that it was just a case of simple diving. However, others were finding it a little hard to believe. So, what made this death controversial? Well, for starters, you see, this wasn't a dive to depth. It was just 75 feet, and for experts like Wes Skiles, it wasn't much difficult. Secondly, it was an open sea dive, meaning that Wes wasn't moving through some intricate or difficult to pass caves where it's actually very hard to move. Now, obviously, Wes didn't lack experience, so all of this pointed to one direction. Was there something wrong with Skiles' diving equipment? You see, most of the divers during that time used open circuit scuba gear. In this system, the breathed air isn't recycled and it's just passed into the water in the form of bubbles. But these bubbles would scare the fish away, and it meant for Wes shouldn't be able to capture these fish in his camera. So, to solve this problem, Wes opted for a rebreather. Gear that wasn't even his. Now, in a rebreather, the air is recycled by an artificial lung, and you breathe it again and again as the name implies. However, in the case of Wes, the equipment malfunctioned and Wes ended up breathing in carbon dioxide that eventually caused his death. The lawsuit. In 2016, Skiles' widow filed a lawsuit against the equipment company claiming it was a failure of the equipment that caused his husband's death. She also claimed that the company was very much aware of the faults in the rebreather, but still didn't take any steps to correct it. However, the company was cleared of all charges on May 20th, 2016 by a Palm Beach County jury. Even today, almost 14 years after his death, some questions still remain. Although the company was cleared by the court, there have been multiple reports of a faulty oxygen level detector in that particular rebreather. On the other hand, some blame was on Wes, stating it was his mistake that he didn't test the equipment properly. Nevertheless, the fact remains that the world lost one of the most talented and true to his craft men to a horrible accident.